But you got a flag down.
Oofside.
Everyone but the center. Offense.
You're listening to Oofsides on Track and Turf Media.
Talk about playoffs?
But they are who we thought they were.
Who's gonna win it all?
Football.
And who is Dunyan Rings?
You play to win the game.
Live from the Dieter Brock studio.
Don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug.
Here's the crew that's bringing it all to you.
Oh, baby! Welcome back to Oofsides, Week 18 review. The regular season is over. Playoff football is upon us.
Playoffs?
And back here with Dewey again. Steven out again this week. How you doing?
Wonderful. I don't have to watch my team suck for another 6 months now.
Yeah, me neither.
It's finally over.
Oh, baby, can't wait to get into that discussion.
No kidding.
Yeah, Week 18, a week for a lot of teams, didn't fucking matter because most playoff spots were already locked up. A lot of seeding was already locked up. There's I think 3 or 4 games that really directly had an impact on what was going to happen. But then, of course, it's the end of the year and a lot of people getting fired. Can't wait to talk about all that. We'll get into...
Boy, howdy.
Yeah, coaches that were fired, maybe should have, maybe shouldn't have. Yeah, it'd be a lot to go. And also, we haven't missed a single episode this whole regular season. That's the first time we've ever done this. So,
well, you haven't uploaded last week's yet, though.
Yeah, that is true. I gotta get on that. I was busy all weekend after we recorded that one late, and I've been kind of out of it. But by the time you're hearing this, by the time you're hearing this, that one will be up as well. So,
we're just better.
Yeah. I guess we should just get into the games because it all started on Saturday. That's the wrong song. Whoops! It all started on Saturday in Baltimore.
Did I not write for this game?
No, it's me.
Oh, good.
The regular season is no longer... You have to wait for the cue. Now I've fucked it by talking about it more. The regular season is no longer the priority for the Ravens. Neither is just making it to January football. Winning is now the standard. Lamar Jackson and his avian teammates laid waste to their blood brothers from Cleveland on Saturday in dominating fashion, as it typically goes between these two teams. Riding a career year by their signal caller, a resurgent defense, Baltimore has put themselves in position to go far this postseason, successfully stealing the division right out from under their hated rivals from Pittsburgh. Ravens 35, Browns 10.
Man,
we're off to a good start.
Yeah, the Browns, as if they weren't tanking already, really escalated the tank job here by taking out DTR, who had been starting the last couple of games, and put in Bailey Zappi for the last game of the year.
I thought they were going to get zapped.
So the Browns, a year after starting 5 different quarterbacks, end this year by starting 4 different quarterbacks.
See, that's the thing, too, right? They started 5 last year, and they went to the playoffs. So I think they needed to start one more, and that would have turned the season around.
5's the magic number for them.
Yeah,
but,
as it turns out.
Yeah, he threw 2 pretty god-awful picks, too. It was, and again, a game that did not matter for the Browns, and they'll be picking second in the draft later this year with the other results from this weekend. But, yeah, clearly they were never in this. They never really tried. It was just, get this over with, get as good of a pick as possible, and move on to the offseason.
Yeah, once they got to the point where Jameis had those couple sneaky good performances and they were competitive, it almost seemed like the team was or the team management was like, whoa, we can't have that, and and they just kind of punted on the rest of the season. Because mission accomplished. How many losses in a row did they end the season with? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
They finished with 6. Yeah, they their last win was against the Steelers on Thursday night.
Lost 8 of their last 9. Yeah, just a terrible season. Yeah, so mercilessly over for the Browns. There was a pretty cool moment that I retweeted that I saw you like as well, with Myles Garrett telling the Ravens rookie offensive lineman, whose name is currently escaping me.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, where he like came up to Myles Garrett and was like, "I know I'm a nobody, but can I get your jersey?" And he was like, "Man, you're in the league and you guys are kicking ass. You're not a nobody. I got you."
Speaking of that, apparently Myles Garrett is meeting with members of the Browns front office to discuss his future or something.
He's
like,
made a couple comments in recent weeks of kind of like what are we doing here? You know, I've only got so many years of my prime, right?
Yeah, it sounds like he's committed to the city, or to the team, but only if this is like not a true teardown rebuild and if they can like compete again quickly. And I don't blame him at all for that, because he is like arguably the best defensive player in the NFL right now. And if I were him, I wouldn't want to waste my career on a team that's gonna, peak at 8-9 every year, realistically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
for the Browns, they better nail this offseason, because if they don't, their franchise guy might be gone.
Yeah, I mean, he is the definitive player of this team from this era. I mean, I don't know if he's the greatest pass rusher the Browns have ever had, but he's in discussion for it.
He's already up there, but this is the Myles Garrett era of the Cleveland Browns. And for a team that has really not had very many positives in the last 35 years, it would be such a shame for them to never really accomplish something with a player as generationally talented as this one is.
Well, and it's such a shame too, because ever since they've come back, they've always had one or two guys that are a true dude, and they just waste them. You know, because there was Josh Cribbs in the 2000s, and then later it was oh my God, Joe Thomas after that. Now it's Myles Garrett, and you've had so many talented players, and they just never build a team around that guy. And the pass rushing tandem of Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith was working great, and then they got rid of Zadarius Smith. And before that, it was him and Clowney were working great, and then they got rid of Clowney. And they just never, it's always Myles Garrett and his next guy who's playing great next to him, and then they never do anything with that.
Yep.
And it's a shame. So, because Myles Garrett should be playing January football.
Well, I mean, he did play a game of January football.
Yeah. Well, and they had that Steelers win, but
yeah. That team was fucking fun, man. That 2020 squad.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Pain. That's what happened.
Yeah.
On the Ravens side, business as usual. Derrick Henry racked up almost 140 yards and 2 scores on the ground. Lamar Jackson's killing it still. The one thing was Zay Flowers went down with an injury in this game, and that
could be huge.
Yeah, that could change the entire complexity of this team's offense. But at the same time, Mark Andrews has ascended again and is back to prime Mark Andrews again. So I've got some concerns, but I'm not super out on this team yet. And with this win, they stole the AFC North, so the playoffs are the first round of the playoffs are going to run through Baltimore. So they've got that going for them. But
yeah, and speaking of Mark Andrews, he did not have a touchdown catch through the first 5 weeks of the season and still ended the year with 11.
That is nuts.
Which is good for 4th in the league.
It's like the reverse of the Aiden Hutchinson stat, which we'll get to eventually. Yeah, so this was a beatdown, and
very
mercilessly, the Browns' season is over, but the Ravens have much more important football to play in the coming weeks. And the other two AFC North teams played their final matchup of the season, so let's head to Pittsburgh.
The Bengals waltzed into Pittsburgh with one goal in mind: win. Needing a dub to keep their slim playoff chances alive, Joe Burrow led the Bongals into a hostile environment fueled by a stingy defense, and they got the job done. It may not have been pretty, and the numbers may not look sexy, but a win is a win. And despite a mediocre 9-8 record, Burrow, Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson all had incredible seasons. But time will tell if they can bring them all back to take another crack at it. For Pittsburgh, a fourth straight loss going into the playoffs is pretty concerning, and with a rematch set against their bitter rival Ravens, they're going to need to turn it around and turn it around quick. Bengals 19, Steelers 17.
So, I had 2 notes that I wrote down for this game. The first one was George Pickens is a liability, and then the second one was nobody on the Steelers can catch.
Well, I would disagree with
God.
that. Pat Freiermuth can catch.
Yeah, that's true.
He had a good game, but that's really it.
Everyone else, complete liability. George Pickens was targeted 6 times. He caught one of them for 0 yards. He had like 3 or 4 hideous drops. You had Russell Wilson like talking to him on the sideline, like, "Dude, come on, like you're a dude. We need you right now."
He gets in his own head so easily.
Yeah.
When he's
was
focused
ugly.
and on it, he has the potential to be a top 15 receiver in the league, but when he starts to spiral like that, it's just it becomes an Antonio Brown type liability for them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that Najee Harris isn't able to get anything going on the ground. And it's the same thing that we started out this year talking about. It's that the Steelers offense gets stuck in the mud, and it's another Steelers game where neither team scores over 20 points, which seems to just always be the status quo with them. It sucks because we've seen Russell Wilson play pretty well this year, and a month ago they were flirting with the number 1 seed, and now they are backing into the playoffs as the 6th seed.
And going on the road to Baltimore this weekend.
So it's a mess, and I don't blame Steven for being really frustrated about it, because like even as a non-Steelers fan, this is so frustrating to watch, because like that the Steelers are a football like powerhouse, and then this is the best they can do. It just doesn't make any sense.
And they're like a historical powerhouse too. Like the way you think about Ohio State for football, or a team like Alabama for football, you think of the Steelers for the NFL. There are very few teams across the pro sports leagues that are always going to be good every year. But the Steelers have had that model of consistency now really for about 50 years for the most part. So yeah, they finished 10-7, but this feels like about the 9th year of status quo where you do nothing in the playoffs, you pick about 15th, you go into next year, and the same thing happens again. And for a team of that pedigree, that's just not good enough.
Yeah, I think the status, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a sneaky long time. Like, that streak started with the Blake Bortles loss, and yeah, it's not good. On the Bengals side, just like you mentioned, truly ridiculous years for Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, which pay that man. Jesus Christ, Bengals, what are you doing?
I hope the Patriots pay T. Higgins, actually.
Did Trey Hendrickson end up leading the league in sacks at the end of the year?
He did. He got 3.5 sacks in this game to finish the year at 17.5.
So they had, I'm pretty sure, the number 1 passer, receiver, and sack leader, and went 9-8 and missed the playoffs.
Yeah, Burrow finished with 4,918 yards and 43 touchdown passes. And Jamar Chase finished with 127 receptions, which led the league, 1,708 yards, which led the league, and 17 touchdowns, which led the league.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, and even then, at the end of this game, it still felt like their defense was going to give it away.
They damn near did.
The Steelers made a push in the 4th quarter to make it a 1-score game, but just couldn't get down to field goal range at the end of it. That is the Bengals season in a nutshell. It was the same thing last week, where it was like Joe Burrow is going crazy, and on the football field in a good way, and going crazy on the sideline because his defense can't do goddamn anything.
Yeah.
This season is a colossal disappointment, and I've got to find it, but Greg Rosenthal had a stat about the Bengals over the last 2 years, and how it's kind of wild that Zach Taylor gets such a pass on everything, because let me find his record. The last 2 years with Joe Burrow starting, he's 14-13.
Yeah.
And remember that they had Oh my god, why am I drawing a blank on the guy who was their backup?
Jake Browning last year.
Jake Browning, thank you. I should remember his name. Like, Jake Browning played really well, and they were still losing games. And like they are.
Specifically that Jacksonville game that he played.
Oh god.
It was like his second ever start. He threw for like 350 yards to win and keep them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It was just, you still can't figure it out.
It's funny to think about that game in retrospect because it's like mutually
It
assured
broke the
destruction.
Jaguars. Yeah.
Yeah, and they took the Bengals down with them, basically. Yeah, which we'll get to it in the news, but they did make some changes. So we'll obviously talk about that when we get there. But yeah, based on what happened the very next day, just colossal missed opportunity by the Bengals after what should have been a great year, especially with, if you let this team into the tournament, like they're going to run anybody to the absolute limit. So
If they had made it in over the Broncos, they were going to get the Bills. And the Bengals have kind of had the Bills number the last couple years, even in Buffalo. That would have been, I think, a pretty favorable matchup, especially with the way the Bills' defense has been playing the last month, which hasn't been great at all on its own.
Yep.
So, but you know what? If the Steelers lose this weekend, I think it's a failure for both teams this year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially because of the changes they made in this offseason to the coaching staff and, the quarterback changes, and it's still just the same stuff. And I wonder if the Steelers are in one of those situations where you have a good head coach, but you need some fresh blood.
They really are just the University of Iowa of the NFL. A perennially good defense every year, an offense that gets stuck in the mud after week 8 every year, and a head coach that's been there a long time that maybe shouldn't anymore.
Yeah. Hey, I wonder where they got the idea or where Iowa got the idea for their uniforms from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, frustrating one for the Steelers and Bengals. Felt like both teams lost. Anyway, Sunday kicked off in Philadelphia, though, with history potentially on the line. Maybe? Let's see. Nick Sirianni hates fun and he hates you. Got a running back who's close to breaking the all-time single-season rushing record? Get fucked. Tanner McKee's going to throw it 41 times. Deal with it. This is Philly, bitch. Why don't you cry about it? No Jalen Hurts either? Who needs him? It's the Giants. Will Shipley's going to run it, and you're going to like it. Jahan Dotson's going to be our leading receiver, too. Tough shit. Eagles 20, Giants 13. Forget about it.
I want to point out a couple of things from this game. First off, Tanner McKee might be kind of good.
Dude, yeah.
Because he dotted up the Cowboys last week and was solid in this game. And granted, those were two teams that were not making the playoffs and have been circling the drain for the better part of 6 months. But at the end of the day, you play like that in the NFL. I mean, I don't think he'll start next year, but I definitely think he could be somebody's backup as opposed to a third string.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked better than Kenny Pickett. So
yeah, genuinely. Like,
probably costs a lot less. So.
And then also, you mentioned Jahan Dotson being the Eagles' leading receiver this year. He had 94 receiving yards on 7 receptions. Throughout the entire season, which is his first with the Eagles, he had not recorded more than 36 yards or 2 receptions in a game.
Yeah, this is a game where they were resting all of their starters, and it is funny to see, like, hey, remember with Kenneth Gainwell was their leading rusher, like, last year, and now he's, like, third-string duties, just because Saquon is a fucking monster.
And I want to touch on the Saquon thing. I completely understand why they held him out of this game. Like, I will not question that at all, because at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do for the playoffs and all that. But, man, the opportunity to break one of the most unbreakable records in the NFL against a team that didn't think you were good enough to get the contract you deserved would have been one of the craziest and most awesome sights ever.
Yeah, it was one of those things that would have been perfectly storybook, but like it was the right decision. Especially because, like what we talked about, Saquon is such an unselfish player that he knows that the goal is to win next week and then win the 3 weeks after that.
Right.
So it made sense. It was just a bummer because it was like, man, like not often do you get a chance to see history, and it would have been in such a like perfect storybook way, and we didn't get to see it.
Yeah, just dunking on your former team like that.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I hated to watch it, like, it reminds me of last year. There was something very, very fitting about Bill Belichick's Patriots career ending with a loss to the Jets.
Yeah.
Like, that couldn't have been written any better to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Who knows? Maybe Saquon will have just as good of a year next year, and they'll schedule the Giants on Week 18 on purpose again to see if it'll happen. Maybe they won't have a seed clinch, and they'll actually have to play.
Yeah. On the Giants side, Drew Lock actually played pretty well.
Ish.
Kinda.
Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, efficient.
Kept him in
Completed
it.
a lot of balls. Yeah. But, I mean, this was... I don't know how intentionally they were tanking, but like it was in the Giants' best interest to not win these last few games. And kind of like I predicted, like Daboll kept his job, made sense. Like he was basically just a PR guy at the end of the season. For them, so
I think the Giants are picking third this year.
Let me pull it up real quick.
I believe they're third.
They are, yep, third overall pick. Which a lot of stuff happened with that, which we'll get to.
Yeah, no, nothing at all actually. But also Malik Neighbors ending with 1,200 yards and 109 receptions in his rookie year, with Daniel Jones, Tommy Cutlets, and Drew Lock throwing to him. Put that man in the Pro Bowl, even as a rookie.
Well, what's funny about it too was he stole the like rookie reception record from Brock Bowers in this game, and then Brock Bowers just stole it right back.
Yeah.
So, like he briefly held an NFL record. So
Puka Nacua held that record for about 360 days, and he got passed by 2 people in like an hour.
Yeah. Well, it was like when Baker set the record for like pass yards in a rookie season or something like that, and then it lasted like a year until Kyler Murray broke it, and then Justin Herbert came along and broke it, and then I think somebody else, and I think CJ Stroud broke it last year, and it was like, well, sorry Baker.
Like, why even bother with this one anymore?
You're not even like in top 5 anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They have 14-win Eagles team when we really didn't think they were gonna like. I remember us thinking that they were just gonna continue the slide they were ended last year on and end up firing Sirianni, and here they are at 14-3 with the number 2 seed. So
yeah, don't go back and listen to those mid-season episodes. Or just skip the Eagles parts. Yeah, it was funny though that the Eagles entered Week 18 a game, tied with the 2 teams battling for the number 1 seed and had 0 chance of getting it.
Yeah. Shout out to the Giants, though. They won 4 fewer games than the Cowboys, but allowed 53 fewer points.
It's that Cowboys defense, baby. More on
Gotta
that later.
love it.
So
yeah.
Yeah, and that was Giants Eagles. Where's my show sheet? I can't find it. Uh-oh, there it is. Let's go up to New England, where the team that went into Week 18 had a very simple goal. And we'll see how they did.
The Patriots ended their 2024 season the same way they started it, beating a playoff contending team featuring a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. With an impressive performance from their rookie quarterback and a good defensive performance, this should certainly give them momentum into next year with their head coach. Wait, Josh Allen only played 1 snap? The rookie quarterback was Joe Milton? What the fuck happened here? Well, at least they won. Bookending their season with wins is great. Surely everything in the middle went well too. Patriots 23, Bills 16, Gerard Mayo unemployed.
Oh no.
Good grief.
This was... So I know people... We're just going to address the elephant in the room. Gerard Mayo was fired after a season. And I know there's people speculating that because they won is what he got fired. But people have been pointing out there was a lengthy statement by Robert Kraft about this.
Oh yeah.
And an interesting thing was it's pretty consistent with the fact that if you've seen the video of the locker room post their week 1 victory over the Bengals, he flat out says this changes my expectations for this year. And then,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he basically said that they didn't live up to his expectations.
It was a very loaded statement because he and he had the press conference the day after as well that like he went further in depth about it. And basically he was like, yeah, I put Gerard in an untenable situation. And it's like, yeah, no fucking kidding you did. Like, Gerard Mayo had zero chance to succeed this season. But the shame of it is he didn't really do himself any favors either.
No.
Like, I think this is a poor indictment on both Gerard Mayo and the ownership for how this season went.
Yeah, and there was a really funny thing too about it, which was Robert Kraft basically saying like he something about like he wasn't ready to be, or like he's not ready to be great yet, or something along those lines. Where it was like
He was not ready to be a head coach. But
yeah, and it was like you hired him.
Yeah.
Like he's been in your building for years. Like what are you doing?
He's been with the team since 2008. He's been here for 17 years. Like a tenure of a player that great should not have ended that way, and it's a genuine shame that it did because I loved watching Gerard Mayo. I thought he was going to be a good head coach someday, and it's a shame it went the way it did because I really wanted it to work out.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, even with the lack of talent on this team, like there were times where Gerard Mayo did look like he was out of his depth. And you expect a coach, maybe a first-time coach, to grow and improve over the years. But
he really didn't, though, and that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Like there were going to be growing pains, but there wasn't really any growing. There was just pain.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Especially with the oh my god, I just completely lost my train of thought. Holy shit.
Proud.
Yeah, it's just a frustrating year overall where you expected to see improvement, and Drake May looks like a gem and Joe Milton played really well, but outside of that, like I don't know what else this team really has going for him.
I wonder if they're going to try to trade Joe Milton for a higher draft pick now, because with how he played on Sunday, I think there's going to be some teams calling for him. Like, he genuinely looked really good in this game. And there's already been some, like, terminally online Patriots fans like, oh, they should just trade Drake May for a good draft pick and go with Joe Milton. No, stop.
No.
Stop.
If Joe
works.
Milton was better, he would have been starting. Like,
yeah. Encouraging game, though, from Kayshon Boutte. Like, there were a lot of the questions about him at the beginning of the year, and I think he is going to be one of the guys that can stand out in the future seasons. But, like, now that it's over and we can look back on it, the two wide receivers that they picked in the draft this past year were colossal disappointments.
Tell me if you've heard that one before.
Like, oh, yeah. But, like, Jalen Polk had his diva moments this year, which, I mean, if you're an established player like Antonio Brown, maybe can get away with it a little bit. But, dog, you're a fucking rookie. Be so fucking serious.
Not to mention a rookie who did fuck all this year.
Yeah, and Javon Baker, who was their fourth-round pick, had one reception for 12 yards on the entire season, and it was in this game.
Oh my god.
It took him till the last game to finally get a reception.
I was reading that stat as you were reading it, and then you said the whole season, and I was just like, yeah. Excuse me. And we should mention also, I don't know if we outright said it, but one of the most damning things about this game was if the Patriots lost, they clinched the first overall pick. They won.
And then they're picking fourth.
Yeah.
Because the hope I had was, like, because I didn't, like, sure, picking Travis Hunter at number 1 wouldn't have been a terrible decision, at least to me. But the idea that I was thinking was, you know, if they get number 1, they could trade it to a team that needs a quarterback and slide down to maybe 4 or 5, get the guy they really want, and get a boatload of picks. But now they're stuck at 4 instead.
Yeah. And Gerard Mayo was like, wow, why don't we just go down to 4 naturally? It'll be easier that way.
Well, it's also really funny, too, because at the beginning of the year, when in his introductory press conference, he guaranteed that this team was going to win more than 4 games, and it's very fitting that they won exactly 4 again.
No.
And there was I saw another article I think yesterday where I don't remember which game it was after, but I guess all the assistant coaches had their tablets up and they were watching film from the game on the flight back to try to figure out what they could improve on. And Gerard Mayo just went over with the players and played cards with them the entire flight.
Oh jeez.
And it's man, I get you want to be the popular, fun with the players, nonchalant, laid back coach and all that, but you have a job to do.
Yeah, I believe that's what the kids would call unserious.
Yeah. And obviously nothing really to take away here for the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen was in the game for the first play and then came
he literally
out
handed off and then had this big celebration as he ran off and handed off to Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, just to keep his start. It was literally just to keep his start record going. That's
yeah.
So, but we got him and we got some Mike White power in this game
as
well.
Mike White supremacy. Let's go.
And yeah, Drake May played the first series and then came out. So, but yeah, I mean,
which that in and of itself is funny too. That it's one team that's battling or that has the number 2 seed locked up, and the other one that's trying to clinch the first overall pick, and they both rest their starting quarterbacks after the first drive.
It definitely felt like later on in the game the Bills were trying to lose. There were 3 or 4 throws that Mike White just totally fucked up that he very well could have easily made. It felt like it was almost on purpose.
It would be funny if Sean McDermott was it'd be really funny if we fucked over the Patriots here.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was injury or him being benched, but Ramondre Stevenson also did not play in this game. So it was Antonio Gibson and whoever Terrell Jennings is. So yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, watching Joe Milton was cool. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm, very fun to watch. And they got fucked out of the number 1 pick. Let's go.
Yeah.
And our coach is gone.
Fun time
What a
Foxborough today.
What a damn season, and I'm so happy it's over. I don't have to talk about this team on this show again for 6 more months.
Yeah. Well, it's another team that we don't have to talk about for 6 more months. It's the Tennessee Titans. So
Thank God.
Tennessee is the site of another tasteless decision by their Titans, as once again the vagabond team, formerly known as the Houston Oilers, decided to break out the old love you blue threads against their rival, who filled the void Bud Adams left there. Fittingly, the Nashville team got rolled by their younger brothers, with Will Levis giving us one more hilarious turnover as a parting gift for what's been a miserable season for them. Pretty bad to wear those unis now, huh? Texans 23, Titans 14.
And with the win by the Patriots, the Titans, congratulations, you are the holders of the number 1 pick in the upcoming NFL draft.
Ironically, their old head coach is probably going to be coaching the Patriots. So, it's really funny to think about Mike Vrabel will be like, damn you Titans, you've screwed me again.
It almost felt distasteful in a way for the Titans to break out the Oilers unis for this game. Let it
100%.
go already. Let it fucking go. It's been almost 30 years now.
Well, it's also it's antagonistic towards the Texans who didn't do anything, because it's not it would be if the Texans broke out the Oilers unis against them. It would be fuck you guys for what you guys did. But for this one, it's literally the Titans being ha, remember your old team that everybody liked way more? Eat it. It's so lame. And it sucks too because the uniforms look great.
They do. They look really good. But I kind of hope at some point down the line the Texans just rebrands to the Oilers colors but keep the logo if they can make that work somehow.
Get fucking sued into oblivion, unfortunately.
Or maybe I don't know, the Titans could get new ownership that says, yeah, this shit should belong in Houston, and we can just get the Oilers back or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we've been over it before, but the Tennessee Titans might be they might have the least amount of aura of any pro sports team in the United States.
It's up there.
They've had one good playoff run, and it was 25 years ago. They kept the same color scheme of the city they left. Break out the uniforms that the old team had against the new one that replaced them. Just no fucking aura. Their current uniforms are terrible. The ones they replaced were terrible. The team right now is terrible. The ownership is terrible. Everything about this team is just terrible.
I had a YouTube video idea a while back where it was like the history of like teams as the number 1 seed, because the Titans are 0-3 as the number 1 seed in the playoffs, which is just hilarious. Yeah, I mean,
And they also fired someone.
Yeah, well, at least when they had Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and AJ Brown, like they were fun, and like I liked those teams a lot. But yeah, this
That was the
current
closest we
Titans
got.
team, this current Titans team is just like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of the Tennessee Titans?
And I thought this team was going to make a wild card spot, and they got the number 1 pick.
Yeah,
I
Don't
was on
look into,
real meth for that one.
yeah. Don't look into my preseason prediction, kind of hyping them up.
Yeah.
What was I thinking? Yeah, this game, should also mention, literally didn't matter. The Texans were locked into the 4 seed. The Titans, it literally benefited them to lose. A little bit of a tune-up game for the Texans, just to kind of get ready for the playoffs. And even then, like, C.J. Stroud only played 1 series, so.
Yeah, they let Davis Mill in this game, which is pretty cool. And also, shout out the 92-yard touchdown by Dameon Pierce in this game.
This is literally like, hey, remember this guy? Remember when he was really good 2 years ago?
I gotta be honest, I kind of wonder if it might benefit them to start Dameon Pierce over Joe Mixon this weekend.
I was just about to mention that, because Joe Mixon has looked cooked the last 2 months.
Like, he got 1,000 yards this year, but the back half was not pretty.
Yeah. I should also mention the funniest moment of this game was the aforementioned Will Levis. Was it a fumble or was it an interception? I can't remember.
A fumble.
Yeah. Which they cut into that game from the studio to give an update on it, and JJ Watt was the one doing it, and he was like, I'm pretty sure this is a glitch, but whatever, I'm rolling with it, and then used it as an opportunity to shit on the Titans for wearing the Oilers uniforms.
That was one of our WTF moments of the week, by the way, also, was that
So
studio update. What, like,
Yeah.
Come on, CBS.
And now an update for the game that you're already watching.
Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of like when NASCAR races on Fox go to commercial, and then they end every commercial break with 2 minutes of NASCAR commercials, and I'm like, motherfucker, why are you advertising this to me? I'm trying to watch the race and you won't let me.
No, when your Spotify Premium expires and the very first ad is for Spotify Premium.
Want a break from the ads?
Have you ever seen, I think it's a Gus Johnson sketch where it's like Spotify Premium, and like the song ends and he just pours like a bunch of rocks into a blender and just starts screaming into a megaphone, and he's like, buy Spotify Premium, you cheap fuck. I'll have to send it to you after this.
Want a break from the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, honestly,
Sure
yeah.
Calvin Ridley does. That poor man.
Dude, I think the thing that makes the season even funnier is the fact that there was all the fucking Will Levis Mayo commercials, and then it's like interspliced in between him throwing the dumbest interception you've ever seen. I hope Will Levis sticks around. He's too funny. We can't lose him.
Do you think he's the starter next year for them?
No.
Yeah, I don't think they start him or Mason Rudolph. I think they're picking a quarterback at number 1, even though they have a lot of needs.
So, gonna be a fun offseason for the Titans.
What a disaster.
Yeah.
Because they on paper, they had a pretty good offseason last year, and then it just real quick.
A team that did find their quarterback, and despite the record, rolling into the offseason with a lot less questions than some of their rivals. As I'm getting a phone call. We're the Carolina Panthers. Let's go there.
The Panthers rolled into Atlanta in Week 18 hoping to play spoiler. The first of potentially many matchups between Bryce Young and Michael Penix was one for the ages, as two teams struggling on offense combined for 82 points and 962 total yards, because of course they did. In the end, Bryce Young accounted for 5 touchdowns, and the Panthers ended the Falcons' hopes of sneaking into the playoffs. And while Carolina only mustered 5 wins this season, this game gave a lot to be hopeful for a fan base that desperately needed it. Panthers 44, Falcons 38. What a game. Yeah, it turns out this game didn't matter because of what happened in another game this weekend. But I think there's, again, a lot to be hopeful for both sides, because I don't think anybody saw this being the highest scoring game of the week.
Yeah.
And the most
It's like-
back and forth game of the week.
It was like last week with the Giants dropping a 40 burger, and everybody was like, "Excuse me?"
And now the Panthers go and drop fucking 44 on the Falcons.
Yeah.
Like-
We got to talk about the, I mean, we've talked about it basically every week since it started, but the ascension of Bryce Young, epitomized in his Steph Curry celebration while the ball was still in the air.
That was
For
awesome.
a touchdown pass. So
That needs to
fucking
be in the
good.
thumbnail.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, genuinely the best game of his entire career up to this point.
Oh yeah. Dude,
And like, the
Canales-
bar for that is nowhere near as low anymore.
No, and Canales worked his magic again. I mean, in the last 4 years, he's turned Geno Smith into like a $70 million quarterback. He got Baker Mayfield paid, and now he's turned around the career of Bryce Young. So that's a pretty
Yeah.
good resume to have. But yeah, like you mentioned, this game did end up not mattering because of a game that we will get to later. But yeah, the Falcons came to play knowing that they absolutely had to win if they wanted to get into the playoffs.
They gave it their all. Can say
Yeah,
that.
and unfortunately, I don't want to say they blew it, but had a chance to put this game away a couple times, couldn't do it. Had another missed field goal from Younghoe Koo, or not Younghoe Koo, sorry, Riley Patterson. And then it went to overtime, and they just never even saw the ball because this Panthers offense was just rolling.
I mean, an absolutely monster game, though, from both Bijan Robinson and Drake London, both of whom with over 170 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns apiece.
Oh yeah.
Definitely both cornerstone pieces for years to come. So with that, Bijan Robinson, who was really very underutilized by Arthur Smith last year, ending with less than 1,000 yards in his rookie year, he ended up 3rd in the league with 1,400 yards this year.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And-
there's definitely a lot of potential with this Falcons offense still. And I think Penix is 100% the guy going into next year.
For sure.
But yeah, still just a frustrating way to end the season, especially because
They were
this is,
6
I
and
believe-
3.
Yeah, they were 6-3, and they ended up with was it 8-9?
Yep, they went 2 and 6 to end the year.
That's pretty bad. And it's their 7th straight losing season. So tough scenes.
Yeah, that one, reading that was actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's been 7 years since the Falcons have been in the playoffs. But them's the breaks.
And they only have, I think, 5 draft picks upcoming this year.
Ooh.
They've got their first, they've got their second. They traded their 3rd round pick for Matthew Judon at the beginning of the year. They got their 4th. They had to forfeit their 5th round pick because of the tampering with Kirk Cousins, and then their 6th and their 7th.
Jesus Christ.
So they only have 5 draft picks as of right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely a mixed bag for the Falcons this year, because I feel like they made progress, but they also collapsed very poorly down the stretch.
At this point for them, the best course of action I think for them is just to release Kirk Cousins and eat the dead cap and move on.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, 'cause
sounds like they're willing to keep him as the backup, but I mean, why are you gonna have a $180 million backup quarterback? Like, come on.
Yeah,
Be
and
real.
I don't think Kirk wants to be the backup there. So I think he could. It's another year removed from that Achilles injury. I think he could still be a plus starter for somebody. But
Someone will
yeah.
take a flyer on him.
oh yeah, So, yeah, I don't know if we have any more thoughts on that, but Panthers, the needle is pointing up for them.
It
So,
just might be.
Yeah. Another team that the needle is aiming up, or the arrows pointing up for, is the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders exist to serve one purpose, and that's bring joy to the people. With their playoff spot locked up, Marcus Mariota was the man under center for the Commies, 5 yards away from glory in the waning seconds. With just 5 left on the clock, Mariota delivered a strike to scary Terry McLaurin, clinching his comrades a 23-19 victory over those capitalist Cowboys from Dallas, sending Jerry's squad into the offseason after a year to forget. Onwards into the winter front, lads. Commanders 23, Cowboys 19.
I still can't believe the Cowboys went 2-7 at home this year.
After going, what was it? I think
8-0?
16-1 over the last 2 seasons at home.
Yeah.
I also swear that the Commanders exclusively win on the final play from scrimmage. Like, how many times
sure
have they
does
done
feel
that
that way.
year? They did it against the Bears, against the Cowboys now. The Eagles one was with like 15 seconds left.
They won on the final play in the Saints game, even though they were on defense.
Oh, true.
And, the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this team is very close to being like 7-10 if we're being totally real. But they won the ones they needed to, so they're not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I just don't... I'm trying to think of like how to put into words like how excited this team makes me to watch them every year or every week.
For sure.
They're just fun, and I'm gonna be so bummed if it ends poorly in January. But like the run that they're on right now, it just gives me like flashbacks to that magical RG3 year, and even though they had a lot to play for in this game, like they were not going to make that same mistake because Jaden Daniels has been dealing with some like calf soreness, and so they were like, we're not going to play you. Like, whatever. Like, oh, you lose.
Series.
Yeah, you lose and you go to what was the other one? They'd have to go play in, I think, Philadelphia if they lost this game.
Yeah, but now they're going to they have a rematch with the Bucs.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things where, like, obviously, yeah, you'd much rather go to Tampa than Philly, but no need to risk it.
I don't know. Tampa blew them out in week 1, and yeah, they were a different team in week 1, but...
That's true.
I think that game will go much differently this time around, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But either way, 12 wins in year 1 for Dan Quinn and year 1 for Jaden Daniels is unreal.
Oh, yeah. So it's been a magical season so far. On the other side,
we finally saw Trey Lance.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really keep up with this game super close until the end of it because I was watching the Bucs game. Trey Lance, he was okay. He was fine. That's about my takeaway from it.
I think it was fine for them to play him though, because I think at this point with Cooper Rush, you know what you're going to get. But with Trey Lance being a top 5 pick within the last like 3 years, it was worth seeing if you got anything in him.
I know we'll have a lot to talk about in the news, but I guess I'll just get my thoughts on it. That the Cowboys are leaning towards keeping Mike McCarthy because Jerry Jones is weird, and he's every coach signs every owner signs their coach to a contract that expires like the day after the season ends. And he does his like 2 weeks after that, which is why we had the weirdness with like the Jason Garrett firing. And now there's like rumors on like, oh, are they going to keep him? I think it was the Bears inquired about interviewing him and they said no.
Denied it. Yeah.
So I think they're going to keep McCarthy. Honestly, I don't think he did that bad of a job. That might be an unpopular opinion, but like this year, like I don't really know what Jerry Jones expected with this roster.
Yeah.
So it's similar to the like Mike Tomlin thing where I'm like, I think Mike McCarthy is a good football coach. It's just I think his ideas are stale. And the problem is they don't get it done in January. And
He also got a toxic ownership group above him, so
that too.
That certainly doesn't help.
So, although I will say, because I saw it posted around a lot, Jerry Jones was on an episode of Landman in the last week, and I was like, God damn, that guy can act. Like,
Oh yeah, I did see that.
he actually did a pretty good fucking performance.
Well, did you also see the thing where somebody asked him about him ever like giving up control of the team to his kids or whatever, and he was like, "No, I bought the team for me."
Yeah, I did see that.
Like,
yeah.
great, you're gonna suck shit till you die then. Like,
Is that why your son is basically the general manager? Yeah, it's
unserious.
Yeah, I feel like if in a better ownership situation, like you would look at the job Mike McCarthy did this year and be like, oh, this guy's got to fucking go. But I look at the fact that the Cowboys did absolutely nothing in the offseason, and then
That's not McCarthy's fault.
Yeah, and we're somehow surprised that they weren't very good, and like the players and the roster like fucking love him. So I don't know. Like I would be okay with them rolling another year with him, I guess, but I don't know. Like I don't really know what the future is for this team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah. So, and that's about all the thoughts I have on Cowboys. So, onward roll the commies. Speaking of a team that inquired about Mike McCarthy, let's go up to Green Bay, where they had playoff seeding on the line.
The Bears went to Lambeau to cap off a season that unraveled perhaps like no other. Riding a 10-game losing streak with an interim coach, they had the daunting task of trying to end it against the team they had beat in 2018 in a heartbreaking loss already this year. But this time it was different. It once again came down to a field goal, but this time the Bears got the good ending. Caleb Williams' rookie year ended on a good note that has been filled with bad ones. There's still work to do, but maybe it's looking a little less bleak now. Bears 24, Packers 22, and they finally beat Green Bay again.
They did it.
Yeah.
Their schedule graphic on the Wikipedia page for the season is so funny to look at because it's the first 6 games and then the bye, which is just the blank slot, and then just all red.
Yeah. And then, oh, look, you won again.
Yeah. And this was not just like a team resting its starters. The Packers came in with a lot to play for. They'd obviously already clinched their playoff spot, but they were sitting at the number 6 seed with a chance to jump up to the 5. Or no, they had no chance jumping up to 5.
No,
but
they
a
did.
chance. Did they?
Or no, it was either 6 or 7.
Yeah,
You're right.
So they had to win to hold on to the 6th seed, especially with the Commanders winning in their walk-off against the Cowboys. And they lost. And now all of a sudden they have to go to Philly, which is where they played week 1, which is funny. It's just a funny little observation that we have 3 separate playoff games that are rematches of week 1.
Worth noting as well that Jordan Love went down in the middle of this game with an elbow injury, and so Malik Willis played most of the game and did okay.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't bad, wasn't great. Kept him in the game, if anything, until quite literally the last second. The first time they played, the Bears lost on a blocked field goal, and this time they won on a successful field goal.
Yeah. The biggest loss for them though was the loss of Christian Watson with a pretty bad knee injury. This Packers team has been very strong as of late, but that and this loss
injuries are adding up.
Yeah, and the Jordan Love potential injury.
They were already without Jair Alexander for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's not lining up great for the Packers here at the end of the season.
It is rather funny though, because how often do you get a team that goes 1-5 in their division and makes the playoffs?
Yeah, 1-5 and won 11 games?
Yeah,
I think? Just absurd.
10-1 outside the division.
It is a small fish in a very big pond. Yep. Yeah, you know what? Good for the Bears. Caleb Williams had some genuine great plays at the end of this game that it was like, all right, you have a guy. Like, quit fucking wasting him.
Shout out to Keenan Allen, too, for throwing one of the funniest picks of the year in this game.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That was fucking awful.
God. Even when they win, the Bears still find a way to be the Bears.
Yeah. But they got the W this time, and even though they cost themselves a couple spots in the draft order, they needed that.
Yeah, the Vibes needed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we can move on from that one as well. I didn't have much to say. Although I did just open my notes, and I did want to mention something funny. Because we talked about, it was from the last game, we talked about Cooper Rush and Jerry Jones. And apparently Jerry Jones didn't know that Cooper Rush had like a snap count incentive. And it was like, but you signed him to the contract. What?
I wanted to bring that up because I didn't know if like he didn't know about it or if he intentionally set him so he didn't have to pay it out.
I mean, I wouldn't
But I'd
put
believe
him...
either one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're both equally plausible.
Yeah.
But it was just funny because they asked him, like, why did he not play? Like, he had an incentive, and he was like, oh, I don't know, I don't keep up with the incentives. And it was like, you're his boss!
Signed the motherfucker! What do you mean? You're signing the paychecks, you're signing the contracts, how do you not know about it?
He's your employee.
Oh, man.
God damn it, this team takes years off my life.
More like decades.
Yeah, I know, at this point, I'm gonna make it to, like, 40 at this rate.
You're gonna get, like, cowboy cirrhosis.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Bears-Packers. The next game is Jags-Colts, and once again, I'm going to use this time to talk about something that I care about. So here we go. In September of 1983, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway and the Southern Pacific Railroad announced their plans to merge. In response to the Union Pacific acquiring other smaller railroads and the merger that created the Burlington Northern, the two mid-sized railroads saw joining forces as their only option to compete. The newly formed Santa Fe Southern Pacific Corporation began consolidating their assets and asked the Interstate Commerce Commission for permission to merge. So confident was the new company that they even began painting a number of their locomotives in the new SPSF livery. However, in July of 1986, the ICC dropped the bombshell that they would not be approving the merger, leaving the newly formed SPSF Corporation to scramble and reorganize. The Santa Fe Railroad would eventually merge with Burlington Northern before BNSF in 95, while Southern Pacific was merged with Denver and Rio Grande and then absorbed by Union Pacific the following year. Colts 26, Jaguars 23. Who cares, honestly?
Yeah. With the Colts being eliminated last week, this game meant truly nothing to anybody.
Yeah.
So
should also mention, this was the 10th one-score loss for the Jaguars this year, a modern NFL record.
So, if they had won all of those, they'd have been the number 2 seed in the AFC.
14-3.
Yeah.
If they'd won half of them, they would have won 9 games.
They'd have been 9-8, yeah.
Yep.
Actually, if they won half of those, not only would they have been 9-8, they would have been division champions. They'd have been in the playoffs. And instead, you're 4-13 with a head coach vacancy. There you go.
Yeah, that's what I do want to talk about, which is that they're keeping Trent Baalke, but firing Doug Peterson. Which, like, if you had to keep one, I would have kept Peterson. But realistically, you would have fired both.
Dude, how many different people does Trent Baalke have dirt on that he's lasted this long with 2 different teams?
Well, the crazy thing, too, is, like, this job is one of the most lucrative in the NFL. And with Baalke as the GM, like, there's been reports of multiple coaches have straight up said they're not interested. So, I don't know what Shad Khan's doing.
All elite football management.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, both these teams were just like, I don't know if necessarily know if the Colts could be considered a failure, because I don't really know what the expectations were this year, but
they
didn't
finished
end well.
Where they should have.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a pretty decent game, though. I mean, it went to overtime and finished with 1 score. It wasn't bad on the field. It just didn't mean anything, so no one really paid attention to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good game from Josh Downs. They gave Jonathan Taylor the ball 34 fucking times. Joe Flacco played, I mean, all right for a 39-year-old, I guess. I mean, he'll be 40 in a week. Who knows if he gets signed again? And, I mean, Mac Jones did okay. I think Mac Jones has played himself into a backup role somewhere next year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he'll be around.
And also Brian Thomas getting 1,300 yards to be third in the NFL as a rookie.
Yeah.
This year's
that is
wide receiver class is insane.
I was gonna say this was the ultimate year of like the wasted rookie receiver because we had Malik Neighbors and him, and then we'll get to Brock Bowers in a little bit. Yeah.
And also Jalen. Oh wait.
Whoops.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game ended up not mattering other than the Jags clinched the number 5 pick in the draft. The Colts number 14. And yeah, who cares?
Interesting to note, though, that the Colts ended this season with more points scored than the Texans.
God damn it, I hate the AFC South so much.
Yeah.
So dumb.
And also worth noting, too, one other thing about the Texans, their point differential this year was 0.
They are a perfectly balanced football team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thankfully we only have to watch one more AFC South team.
Thank God.
Let's go to the NFC South, the more fun Southern Division.
Is it?
Well, this game was fun. Who are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Are they a middle-of-the-road team hovering around 500? Are they a frisky team who can play anyone close, led by their scrappy QB who refuses to go down without a fight? Whatever they are, they're a playoff-bound football team. Putting aside a sloppy first half against the Saints team playing at the string, Baker's men overcame a 16-6 halftime deficit to pull away in the fourth quarter. With their whole season on the line, the normally stoic and conservative Todd Bowles dialed up a pass to Mike Evans with just seconds remaining to get him his 11th straight 1,000-yard season, etching his name into the history books and rubbing salt into the wounds of their rivals from the Big Easy. Bucks 27, Saints 19.
My single favorite part about this game is the Bucks getting a turnover on downs with the Saints having one timeout left to guarantee that they could just kneel down and win the game. And instead of doing that, they risked potentially turning the ball over back to the Saints to feed Mike Evans the ball to get him to 1,000 yards on the season. And for that, that is fucking awesome.
Well, the best part about that, too, was the drive before it. That was the game-sealing touchdown. They hit this big pass to Mike Evans down the sideline, and he's 5 yards shy of the record. And so everyone knows that the ball is going to him, right? And they get a Bucky Irving run up the middle to get them down, in the red zone. And then on the very next play, Bucky Irving just takes it all the way in. And there's a really funny tweet thread from Brett Coleman where he posts, he's like, Mike's going to get the record. And then immediately, 30 seconds later, no! Because Bucky Irving scored and left them 5 yards short, seemingly with no way of getting the ball back. Yeah, it was so cool to see them dial that up because, like you said, genuinely could have lost them the game if Baker throws a pick six, which he's known to do. It's not like you have a guy who doesn't throw a lot of interceptions.
I also loved the press conference from Baker where somebody asked him about the Bucky Irving touchdown and what his reaction was, and Baker was like, "Oh shit."
I know everybody on that team was telling him go down at the 5, please. God.
But and yeah, he did throw a lot of picks this year, but Baker Mayfield ended the year with 41 touchdown passes.
Career year.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah.
And 4,500 yards on the dot.
Yeah. I mean, if you shave 5 or 6 interceptions off his total, you're looking at
MVP conversation.
Yeah, an MVP, a guy who should be in the MVP conversation. It is funny too to look back 4 weeks ago. Mike Evans was not anywhere close to getting the record, and then he had that huge game against the Chargers, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, wait a second!"
Oh, here we go.
And yeah,
I think though, even beyond the Mike Evans thing, decent game also for Spencer Rattler. But anyway, who cares? So, with the Saints losing, the Panthers got the tiebreaker over the Saints, which means that my preseason prediction of the Panthers finishing ahead of the Saints came true in the last week of the year.
Hang on. I didn't even realize this. Are you fucking serious right now?
I'm dead fucking serious.
Oh my god.
It happened in the last week, but it fucking happened.
I do like that they had a point differential that was 133 points worse than the Saints, and they finished ahead of them, which most of that heavy lifting...
scored than the Saints, too, this year.
Yeah, wait, hang on. I want to do the math on this. How much of that 160-point difference is from the first 2 weeks? It's 80, let's see, 91, 29. That's what, 62 points? Yeah. And they... So, it should be about 101 points is the difference. Or no, not even, like 70 points. Oh, like half of that is fucking from those 2 weeks. Goddamn Saints, way to go.
Really funny. Yeah. 91 points in the first 2 weeks, and you don't even score more than the Panthers did. That's just beautiful right there.
Oh my god. Yeah, Spencer Rattler did play pretty well in this game. The Saints defense just completely baffled the Bucks offense in the first half. And speaking of games that shaved years off of my life, this was another one.
Yeah, there was a while where it was looking like the Falcons are going to win it out and the Bucks are going to lose it, and this team wouldn't have even made the playoffs.
Yeah, there was a there was a moment in this game that was just like truly baffling. And it was, they were down 19-13 with 10 minutes left, and Baker completes this like 40-yard pass to Jalen McMillan on 4th and 8, and it's awesome. And they get down to the like 9-yard line or something like that. And then he does, like, the NFL has its problem with like gun celebrations, and he did like kind of finger guns, but with 2 fingers on each one, and he just kind of pointed. There was no recoil. You know, just kind of like amen, and they fucking penalized them 15 yards for it. And so it was really funny to watch him sit there and argue like, no, I had 2 fingers. It's not a gun barrel. I'm just pointing. But then they completely fucking botched it, because a penalty in between downs like that should move the first down back, not from the spot of where the ball was spotted, because they initially spotted them at 1st and goal from the 29. And then everybody was like, hang on, that's not right. And like Terry McCauley, the broadcast like rules analyst, is like, they're fucking this up. Like, I don't know what they're doing wrong. And I'm not exaggerating. It was 5 minutes of them just like huddling and then like calling people and then trying to figure out what the fuck they were supposed to do before they finally got it and spotted them at like 1st and 10 from the 29. And then, fittingly, Jalen McMillan was the one who also caught the touchdown to take the lead on that same drive.
I can't wait for the Super Bowl to get decided on a terrible referee job. I cannot wait.
It just became a legal drama there. They were legislating it.
But in the meantime, we'll get to see if the Bucks are the ones that get there.
Yeah.
They figured it out somehow.
Speaking of teams, like the Bucks are a similar vein to the Commies, where it's like they can play any team as close as possible, which includes really great teams and like the Lions, who they beat, and also really bad teams like the Saints.
Yeah.
So who knows? It's going to be interesting. I'm ready to be hurt again. So.
Well, at least we don't have to talk about the Saints again for a while. So there's that.
Yeah, so that's nice. Anyway, that's about all I had to say about that. One game that also had massive playoff implications and was another team that was in a win and in situation happened in Denver.
The Broncos played host to the 15-1 Chiefs in Week 18, hoping to secure the playoff spot that had eluded them for the previous 3 weeks. The good news, those daunting 15-1 Chiefs were resting practically everyone and were relying on Carson Wentz to try and tie the league record for wins in a season. Denver's offense struck early and often, putting this game out of reach before halftime hit, and while it was an ugly loss for Kansas City, it means absolutely nothing. Sean Payton's group of 53 nonetheless will have a good amount of momentum heading into Wild Card Week, and with a trip to Buffalo lined up, they'll need all the momentum they can get. Broncos 38, Chiefs nothing.
I like that there were 2 shutouts this year, and ironically, we put both of those teams back to back, and they were the Saints getting shut out and the Chiefs then getting shut out. So it's funny how that works out.
This team went 15-2, and they were one of only 3 teams that didn't score more than 30 in a game, and they were one of only 2 that got shut out in a game. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, the 3 teams that did not score more than 30 in a game, the 4-13 Raiders, the 4-13 Patriots, and the 15-2 Chiefs. Why? Because fuck you.
Eat Arby's. Yeah, I wonder how much of this was like they didn't have Patrick Mahomes propping up the team, and how much of it was Andy Reid just telling Carson Wentz like, who gives a shit, you know? Like, who cares?
Well, they rested Kelsey. They rested, I think, like half the offensive line. I think Chris Jones didn't. Like, they rested a lot of people in this game.
Yeah, they had nothing to play for. Harrison Butker missed his only fucking field goal attempt,
which was really funny. They should just rested him too. But
yeah.
I mean, well, and what it did was it made the Broncos, who needed to win to get into the playoffs, they gave them about the easiest game possible for anybody this year.
Yeah. Yeah,
it did not matter that the Bengals won because the Broncos also did.
And that's another aspect of it too that I wonder is like, I wonder if the Chiefs were like, would we rather see the Broncos or the Bengals in the playoffs? And they were like, I would much rather have the Broncos come into town.
See, I don't know, because the Chiefs and Broncos played, like, when they played each other in week 9, I think it was, like, Denver, if not for that blocked field goal, would have won in Arrowhead against them. Like, that, like, I don't think that was really a good choice either way, if that was what the goal was. Like, they beat the Chiefs or the Bengals and Broncos at home by a combined 3 points.
Yeah. Either way, like, yeah, the Chiefs have bigger ambitions. So no need to suffer an injury in a literally meaningless game for them. So
that being said, even though it was against a bunch of backups, I mean, what a fucking game by Bo Nix.
Oh yeah, four touchdowns through the air.
Almost a perfect passer rating. More touchdowns than incompletions.
Oh yeah.
29 touchdowns and 3,800 yards as a rookie is pretty damn good.
Also, why does Jarrett Stidham have 2 rushing attempts in this game?
Those must have been... Wait, yeah, I was going to say those must have been kneel downs, but they were for 7 yards. What the fuck?
Yeah. That's weird.
Huh. Sure, man.
Yeah, either way, Broncos rolling in with momentum, so I think this will be a fun team.
Yeah, it may have been against backups, but at the end of the day, they beat the defending Super Bowl champions 38-0 going into the playoffs, and that is still a pretty good momentum boost, and they're going to need it with who they're playing.
Oh, yeah. Another game that kind of mattered-ish. Not really. I don't know. The Chargers visited the Raiders in Las Vegas, so let's see how that went.
Jim Harbaugh's Chargers, Antonio Pierce's ex-Raiders. A Week 18 game that didn't mean a whole lot was thoroughly dominated by the Bolts, who locked up the 5 seed with the win. With a career day from Quentin Johnston and a monster game from Justin Herbert, Los Angeles may be peaking at just the right time. For Las Vegas, Jacoby Myers hitting 1,000 yards and Brock Bowers entering the history books are the low and bright spots from a downright miserable campaign. And when Mark Davis said Antonio Pierce knew what it means to be a Raider, I don't think losing is quite what he had in mind. Chargers 34, Raiders 20.
Yeah, I mean, this was, because I don't think the Chargers had anything to... Oh, no, they did have something.
If they had lost to the Steelers 1, they would have been the 6, and the Steelers would have been the 5.
Yeah, they would have been heading to Baltimore. Instead, they head to Houston, which feels all the more doable.
Much more favorable.
Yeah. Yeah, the main story, though, is the Raiders. They fired Antonio Pierce. They then fired their GM, whose name is currently escaping
Tom
me at the time.
Telesco.
Yes, thank you. Interesting decision to fire Telesco. Not really sure about that one. But, yeah, what a year for the Raiders. Didn't they start out like 2-1 or something like that?
They were 2-2 and then lost 10 in a row. Reminder again, one of those 2 was the Ravens on the road.
And then also won like 2 pointless games at the end of the year and fucked themselves out of the number 1 overall pick.
Yep. Instead, they are picking, I think, 6th.
Hang on, I've got it pulled up.
Because one of those wins
6th.
was against the Jaguars, so they lost the tiebreaker to them too.
Like that's the most agonizing thing about this season is it's like, oh, you're losing every week, and then it's like the one time you're like, okay, well, just keep losing, and they're like, we're gonna win. It's like, okay.
I also want to point out the fact that, like, just as a general point, there were 10 teams that lost 12 or more games this year.
That's got to be a record.
There were 4 teams that went 5-12, 3 teams went 4-13, and 3 teams went 3-14.
I was gonna say that's got to be the first time more than 2 teams have lost 14 games in a season. That's got to be a record.
I don't know, but man, there was some terrible football this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2 winning teams that didn't make the playoffs.
Not the Chargers this time, though.
Yeah, they did it.
Yeah.
So, I'm really interested to see what these Chargers do. They have turned it up the last few weeks.
Monster game from Herbert, like I said, too.
Oh, yeah. Herbert's been playing great. They got Quentin Johnston to produce. Lad McConkey had his 10th straight 50-plus yard game. That's a rookie record.
Another rookie with over 1,000 receiving yards on the year.
Yeah. Maybe the only one on a team that matters.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about this game.
Yeah, the Chargers might be peaking at the right time, though.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, Brock Bowers, of course, stole the rookie reception record back from Malik Neighbors. So with 112 receptions as a rookie. And not just a rookie wide receiver, a rookie tight end.
Yeah, that's the best part, too. Yeah, a tight end.
1,200 yards and 5 touchdowns on 11 yards of reception.
And he did it with like 3 different quarterbacks, too.
None of whom should be starting next year.
Man, I'm so sad it ended the way it did for Gardner Minshew.
Man,
Antonio Pierce fucking hated him.
I think Aiden O'Connell can definitely be somebody's backup, but I don't think he's a franchise quarterback.
No.
And I think Desmond Ridder will be lucky to be on a practice squad next year.
Yeah.
So,
still thinking about the game against the Falcons where I was getting ready to type the phrase Desmond Ridder legacy drive, and I was like, no. Show some restraint, Matthew.
Yeah, you knew. Yeah,
anyway.
Not really much else here.
Yeah.
It was just a game that happened.
So,
and we don't have to talk about the Raiders again for 6 more months.
Yeah. And we only have to talk about the Dolphins and Jets one more time. So let's do that.
Good.
Time comes for us all, facing what's more than likely his final game as a Jet and maybe the last of his NFL career. Aaron Rodgers entered Week 18 with one mission: get his 500th career touchdown pass. Midway through the second quarter, he got it with a strike to Tyler Conklin before adding 3 more to go out with a bang. Dolphins entered the game with a slim chance at making the playoffs still, but they were smashed by the Jets' offense, finally looking like what they were sold 2 off seasons ago, as the Jets rolled to 32-20. Good on you, Rodgers, for finally looking like you're giving a shit when it doesn't matter at the end. Coming into this game, the Jets had a 2-5 record in games where they were leading entering the fourth quarter, which is tied for the worst in NFL history. Ironically, the stat just said Browns. It didn't specify a year. It just said the Browns. I feel like that says more than anything else you really need to know.
Yeah, pretty much. and yet, in a year where they had a Hall of Fame quarterback and arguably a Hall of Fame wide receiver, and a Pro Bowl caliber running back, this team finished one game better than the Patriots did.
Yeah.
And they're picking 7th in the draft.
All-time bad vibes team. You really think about what if they didn't fire Robert Saleh.
Yeah. I think if they had kept him, they could have maybe not made the playoffs, but been around where the Dolphins were.
Yeah. I think they would have been like a 7 or 8 win team.
And like 8-9 is still disappointing for what the Jets had in mind, but it's a lot better than 5-12 and losing 9 of 10 at one point during the year.
Yeah. We'll start with Rodgers because each of these teams has a superstar who is seemingly on their way out. I don't know.
This Tyreek Hill stuff is kind of weird.
Yeah. But actually, let's just jump into that real quick. So,
well,
Tyreek Hill had a few weeks ago had a tweet that just said it's time to go, and people were like, "Oh, that's weird." And he clarified, like, I don't know if he ever said exactly what it was, but people were kind of interpreting like maybe saying like it's time to go as a team, like we gotta start making moves or whatever. And then I don't know if you've watched the whole clip of his post game interview after this.
I did.
But he like broaches the subject of like, I don't know where I'm going to be playing next year. Like, and he starts it with like the diplomatic answer of like, I could be here, but we'll see. And then he like breaks character, just goes, I mean, I'm out, dog. I'm out.
Well, not only that, did you see that he made his Twitter profile picture, the Antonio Brown Bucks meltdown with his face photoshopped onto it?
I did.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Yeah. And it's funny too because after he like lets that one fly, the reporter asks him like you trying to leave the Panthers, trying to leave the Dolphins, and then you hear him like walk it back again, and it's like, nah, dude, you opened Pandora's box. Like we all know what your intentions are.
And I guess the GM came out and said that he apparently didn't ask for a trade in the postseason meeting, and then his agent said that he was committed. And it's like, is he though?
I mean, yeah, you guys can play PR, but
it's like if I requested a trade from the defending Super Bowl champions to get more money somewhere else, and then watch the team you got traded for win 2 more Super Bowls, I'd be kind of pissed off too. Yeah.
Especially when, like, I mean, Tyreek Hill's put up great numbers during the stint here, but Tua hasn't been able to stay on the field, and that's affected his production. And if you're Tyreek Hill, you're like, okay, this is like the 3rd year in a row that the guy that I came here for is not here, and we're not in the playoffs, and my old team is, and they look like shit on offense, and it's like,
imagine if they trade him back to the Chiefs.
I wouldn't put it past them. We've seen crazier things.
The shame of it is when him and Tua are fully healthy and on the field together, there are not very many quarterback wide receiver duos that look more fun to watch than them.
Yeah, their chemistry is for real. But yeah, it's just a matter of Tua hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Yeah, Tua looks like a damn operation board at this point.
Yeah. Once again, it was Tyler Huntley was under center here. There's people pointing out stuff too, like Tua on the sidelines and like his fucking big over like Joe Namath style overcoat and his sunglasses, and I was like, dog, aren't you hurt? Like, what are you doing? You're like, your team's not good. So I like Tua, but it's kind of a clown move. Yeah, just like all around bad vibes. You kind of get the impression that Mike McDaniel's kind of losing a grip on the team, which bums me out because I like him too. So who knows? And on the Jets side, we all know the rumors that Rodgers is 100% gone from the Jets. There's no way he plays for them next year. And he actually looked like he was having fun for like the first time this year. I'm not going to make a prediction on whether or not this is his final career game, because God knows how many times I've been wrong about stuff. So I'm not even going to touch it. Forget it. But if it is his final game, went out with a pretty goddamn good performance. So, yeah. Any other thoughts?
What a fun season to watch as in someone that roots against the Jets. This was a hell of a year, man. Like,
As a
hate
hater,
watching
yeah.
vibes were immaculate for this one.
Yep. What a year.
What a
Speaking-
fucking year.
Speaking of which, the San Francisco 49ers and Arizona Cardinals also played a meaningless game. Let's go there.
After the 49ers lost the Super Bowl last season, many figured they'd be right back there again this year. Instead, they unceremoniously gave up almost 50 points to the Kyler Murray Cardinals to sink them to 6-11 in a last-place finish in the division. With injuries galore and a player quitting mid-game, this season was one to forget for Shanahan's squad, and maybe for the Cardinals too, who after getting to 6-4, finished under 500 at a paltry 8-9. San Francisco still is one of the most talented rosters in the league, and for them to be sitting on the couch feels a little bit weird. Better luck next year. Cardinals 47, 49ers 24.
And you know who the driving force behind 2 of those Cardinals scores were?
Ya boy!
'Cause he's Greg Dortch.
Proud of Glendale's football team. Scoring all the touchdowns.
For 2.
Punt return man. Kickoffs too. He's Greg Dortch.
Our boy, our short king, ended the year 4 receptions, 47 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had a fumble, but didn't lose it, so good on you. Yeah, fittingly, the Cardinals, after this slump that they've been in, after getting to the division lead at 6-4, also a collapse, finally reached their offensive potential. It felt like in this game.
Might have been aided by the fact that Greg Dortch also had a carry for 7 yards and 2 punt returns. So
Yeah.
they had him do it all in this game.
Get our man the ball. Good things happen when Greg Dortch gets the rock. Just saying.
But man, what a letdown for the 49ers over this whole year.
Yeah.
It looked like they were starting to figure it out. They got to, I think, 5-5 or 5-4 or something, but they lost 7 of 8 to end the year.
Yeah, and a matter of, injuries to
McCaffrey, Jordan Mason went down. Dre Greenlaw didn't come back to week 12. Fred
Purdy
Warner
got
played on
hurt
a
last
broken
week.
ankle the whole year.
Didn't something happen to Debo as well, or did he just quit?
Debo got hurt. The Ayuk injury. Pearsall got fucking shot before the year started. It was just about everybody that could have gotten hurt did.
Did Debo play
and
in this
Isaac
game? I'm not
Arendo got
seeing-
hurt again in this game too.
Yeah, I don't even think Debo played in this game. I'm not seeing him on the stat sheet anywhere.
He might not have.
I think he's gone from the 49ers after this year, honestly.
I think he's... Maybe this is a little bit controversial. I think he might be a little bit expendable.
Yeah.
Because they've drafted Pearsall. Jawan Jennings, who would have had a 1,000-yard season if he wasn't ejected from this game for fighting. Both of them are much cheaper, younger options that can show that they can produce at a high level. They're going to have McCaffrey coming back. Again, Debo is obviously a very good player and is a top 25 player in the league when healthy, but I think with an offense that has as many options as it has, I think you can trade him and still be fine.
Yeah, I think... and especially there were some bad vibes coming out of, Debo's relationship with the team this year. Yeah, it's just a tough situation overall. And I can't really get a read on what this team is. With all the injuries, it's hard to really gauge what they're supposed to be, because even when McCaffrey came back, they weren't really winning games. So
I don't think he was fully healthy at any point that he played anyway, to be honest.
Yeah, that too, yeah. Just overall a tough year. The Super Bowl hangover is real.
Yeah. And the Cardinals, they went 6-3 at home this year. 4 touchdown game from Kyler, even though it really didn't matter. Trey McBride got another one after going 15 games without one. I think this team's got good stuff to build on, and I think keeping Kyler at least one more year is the move.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing
people are
too,
too hard on him.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing too is my prediction this year was they would win 7 games, and they did. It's just the path they took to get there, actually to
Weird.
exceed those expectations, felt really shitty. Because they
Yeah.
started out 6-4 and then went 4-5 after that.
I mean, they were 2-4, and then they got the 4 in the middle, and then the 3 that they lost. Like, what a up and down weird year they had.
Yeah. So a lot of questions.
They
This win
beat the
definitely.
division champs by 31. Like, the fuck.
Yeah. This win definitely helps ease those frustrations going into the offseason, but still, not sure how to get a read on these guys. The other NFC West game wrapped up after that, and let's go to SoFi Stadium. Honestly, who cares? Jimmy Garoppolo played, I guess. I didn't actually write anything down for this one, so I'm just going to wing it. The Seahawks and Rams faced off with pretty much nothing on the line except playoff seeding for the Rams. But it was the Seahawks scoring late to take the lead, which they would not give up. They would stop the Rams as they drove down to the Seattle 9-yard line to win 30-25, knocking the Rams down a playoff seed. Now they got to welcome in the loser of the next game that we'll talk about, which is not an enviable position to be in.
It's a shame that the strength of record thing happened, because if the Rams had clinched that, this would have been a fantastic division and playoff spot deciding game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was such a bummer that like this game ended up being meaningless because like you mentioned, would have been a great game for the NFC West title, and then because of a Washington win last week, it was just like, oh, it's just all wrapped and it doesn't matter. And it was like, well,
Geno Smith had 4 touchdowns in this game.
yeah, he got paid. He hit some pretty huge incentives in this game with this performance.
4,300 yards on the year.
Just wild.
We got a 300-yard game for Jimmy Garoppolo in his first start in over a year.
He didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Uncharted territory. Yeah. Okay.
Finished this year despite winning the division with a negative point differential.
Nothing about the NFL makes any sense this year.
Yeah, the Rams benched all their starters for this game, and so it was a little surprising that it was still this close, despite like Puka didn't play, Kupp was out, Kyron Williams was out, no Stafford. I think there were other ones too. And still only a 5-point game.
Yeah. One of the big takeaways though was Blake Corum did get hurt in this game, so they're probably going to be without him for the playoffs, which is going to be tough. But I don't know, man. The Rams are so weird. Part of me wants to think they're coming in with a lot of momentum, but they're coming off 3 ugly wins.
They are.
Yeah, they're coming off 3 ugly wins and a loss. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have anything else.
The Seahawks finished 7-1 on the road this year.
That is wild, especially because you consider Seattle to be one of the great home field advantages in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks did anything but win there this year.
And with how certain things have turned out over the last week or so, it'll be Arizona hosting a playoff game this year in this division.
Oh, because the...
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. Oh, right. Duh, I'm stupid. Hang on. I was like, they're not hosting the Super Bowl? Wait, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Don't listen to me. Anyway, let's go to a much better game from Sunday night.
Sunday night, prime time. The 14-2 Vikings, the 14-2 Lions. The final game of the regular season, a division and a bye on the line. Rarely does a regular season game mean so much, but this year, it meant just about everything. Both teams started off slow, but only one got it together. Dan Gamble and crew were up by just a point in the third quarter before they remembered who they were, and when they did, the lights got too bright for Minnesota. After a season where Detroit tied its franchise record for wins, they exceeded that by 3. With a whopping 15-2 record going into the playoffs despite its CVS receipt of injuries, this team looks almost unstoppable, and good luck to anyone that tries to be the one to do it. Lions 31, Vikings 9.
Man, first off, gotta give a shout out to Aaron Glenn because despite
Real
all
as
of the
hell.
injuries, dialed up a ridiculous defensive game plan that just worked over and over and over and over again because Sam Darnold looked frazzled all night. He was missing guys high all night, and it happened in the first half, but I knew that this game was over when 3 straight times the Vikings drove down into the Lions red zone and scored 3 points off of it. It was maddening to watch.
Of all the games for Sam Darnold to have his worst game of the year, and he certainly chose about the worst one for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I've seen a lot of think pieces and like some I told you so's about Darnold. I don't know, man. He's put so much more good football on tape this season than bad football. I'm not gonna
Still
hold
35 touchdown passes.
Yeah, like literally,
And
it's
fifth in the league in passing yards. Like this was no fluke of a season.
This is his first like bad game of the year, you know.
Like
And
you could probably call Case Keenum's 2017 season a fluke. This one was not.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I'm not like I've seen so many people like down and out on Darnold, and I was like, it's one bad game, you know. Like we're gonna see what he's truly made of this weekend, and if he recovers from it. So,
not about what happens to you; it's how you respond to it.
Exactly. So I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see. I'm still rooting for Darnold, but yeah, this was an ugly game for him.
This was the Jahmyr Gibbs game though for the Lions, because holy shit!
And I was gonna say that's the thing that's got to make this frustrating is because the Lions' offense was not doing anything in the first quarter, and with everything that we know, like all their struggles on defense, this game looked like it was going to be a problem, and it was just that those 3 straight stops in the red zone, you know, forcing them to turn it over on downs inside the 10-yard line twice, basically killed this team before it could do anything.
Yeah, it was 10-9 with 3 minutes left of the third quarter.
Yeah.
It was a 1-point game, and then it just completely unraveled.
Yep. And I mean that's why I have just this unwavering faith in Dan Campbell, like because with all the shit that's gone on with the injuries and everything, when they needed to, they dialed up, you know, a hell of a game plan on both sides of the ball, and they dropped 30 points on one of the best defenses in the league and shut down one of the best offenses in the league.
Yeah, this was only the third time all year the Vikings allowed more than 30 points, and the last time was when they played the Rams in week, I think, 7 or 8. Fittingly, that's who they're about to play this weekend.
Yeah. God, the NFC is just full of rematches.
And also shout out to Alex Anzalone for getting 7 tackles, a pass deflection, and a quarterback hit 6 weeks removed from breaking his arm.
Yeah, dude was all over the field in this game. It's just insane. So yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where the expectation for the Lions is win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, even with all the injuries, they've shown they can still do it.
Yep. Yeah,
and that was the regular season.
Yeah, that was Week 18, the regular season. Goddamn, what a year! I can't believe we're going into the playoffs for the Lions of the number 1 seed.
The 15-win Lions at that.
Yep. Can't wait. But first, let's kick it over to the dues.
Yeah, so there were a couple of injuries from this week. Some will have playoff implications, some will not. Mentions Blake Corum already. He broke his forearm, so he is out for the entire playoffs, even if the Rams make the Super Bowl. Christian Watson tore his ACL against the Bears, so he is out for the entirety of the playoffs as well. Zay Flowers has been ruled out against the Steelers with a knee injury already, so a big loss for them. Jalen Hurts remains questionable with a concussion, so potentially big implications there. Deshaun Watson, it was announced he suffered a setback in his Achilles recovery, so he doesn't have a timetable for next season now. Lovely news for a team that is still paying him $73 million fucking dollars.
Jesus Christ.
mentioned Isaac Guerrero. He suffered an MCL and an ankle sprain in the loss to the Cardinals. Thankfully, the Niners have 6 months to get healthy again, so hopefully that doesn't happen to them again next year. Foster Moreau had a pretty significant knee injury against the Bucs, so he will undergo surgery for that.
I saw
rehab in
this
the
happen
offseason.
live. It was so
That was bad.
it was so frustrating too because like the Bucks defender like straight up just dove at his knees, and
I hate that shit.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that it wasn't a penalty, and then it was so frustrating. It was so upsetting to watch because he gets hit right on the sideline, and he doesn't want to cost them a timeout, and so he like rolls off the field so they can like deal with him and not waste a timeout like what happened with the Bengals last week.
Yeah, that was rough to watch, but hopefully he can rehab that and be healthy for next year. And then Jordan Whitehead for the Bucs was involved in a car accident on his way to the team facility on Saturday, so he missed the Saints game and was placed on the non-football injury list. So hopefully that's not too serious and he can be back soon. The Chargers picked up Ezekiel Elliott with their running back issues, as the Cowboys had cut him last week. So he's in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not with the Cowboys, though. So cool, I guess. Like, sure, man.
Nobody's in the playoffs with the Cowboys.
True. And then mentioned some of the coaching firings already, but there were a couple other ones. Mentioned the Patriots firing Gerard Mayo. They also let go of offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. I think Alex Van Pelt would be a good quarterbacks coach for Drake May, but I don't think I want him play calling anymore.
Yeah, it was rough at times this year.
Mentioned, of course, the Jaguars fired Doug Peterson after 3 years with the epic collapse that they've had since about the Bengals game last year. I think they're like 4-15 since that game.
Something like that, yeah. I think they only won one game after that last year.
Yeah, it has been rough. Of course, they also are keeping Trent Baalke, as you mentioned earlier, so sure. The Raiders, of course, fired Antonio Pierce after the interim run last year and the full run this year. When they did so, they said they were going to keep Tom Telesco 2 days ago when they made this decision, and then changed their mind and said, fuck you, you're out of here today.
Oh my god.
And, obviously firing a head coach is relatively rare after 1 year. Firing a general manager after 1 year is almost unheard of. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, especially too, because you look at, he was the one who got something in return for Devontae Adams. He's the one who picked up Brock Bowers.
He drafted Jackson Powers Johnson, I think his name is, in the second round. He's already starting for them at center. He picked DJ Glaze in the third round. He's starting for them at tackle already. He had a pretty good draft. Got a second round pick for a guy that probably got a fourth round pick most other years. And fired him?
It strikes me as Brady being like, I want my guy in here.
I was thinking that, yeah. Because it sounds like he's going to be pretty involved in the head coaching search, too.
He's going to make himself the coach at this rate.
I'm almost curious to see how that would go, to be totally honest with you. The Browns fired Ken Dorsey as their OC. I don't know why they even hired him to begin with.
Yeah.
Because it was clear the Bills fired him for a reason.
Prime example was the Bills' problem last year was not that they couldn't run the ball; it's that they wouldn't run the ball. And
yeah, it was a bad scheme design every fucking week.
And what was the Browns' strength up until this year? Their run game. And I know Nick Chubb got hurt, but still,
Jerome Ford was capable of more than that.
Yeah. So not surprised in the slightest.
And they also fired their offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson, who has already been replaced by the former head coach at Rice. So, sure.
All right.
The Seahawks also fired their offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, which I found a little weird. I don't think the Seahawks offense was that bad.
Especially after a career year from Gino and
a breakout year for Zach Charbonnet with the injuries to Kenneth Walker,
and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. To each their own. And then a very unsurprising move, the Bengals finally fired their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. And it's not all on him because they had a bad offseason in terms of defensive signings, but this unit still sucked, and it needed to happen.
It cost them a playoff shot.
Yeah. Gus Bradley also got let go as the Colts defensive coordinator. Not surprising when you give up 45 points to the Drew Lock Giants to get yourselves eliminated.
Yeah.
And then another very confusing firing. The Titans let go of their GM Rand Carthorne after only 2 years. Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, he never had a chance.
No, especially because they're keeping the coach, but firing the guy who hired him. It's weird.
The Titans ownership is such a fucking mess, and they don't get enough shit for how bad they are. Like, obviously John Mara's gotten a lot of shit, Woody Johnson's gotten a lot of shit, Mark Davis has deservedly gotten a lot of shit. Amy Adams Strunk has flown under the radar now for about a decade for how awful of an owner she is.
Yeah.
And her dad wasn't much better. So good luck with that one. The 49ers also fired their special teams coordinator Brian Schneider, which should come as no surprise. And they also fired their DC Nick Sorensen. However, it sounds like he could stay with the team in a reduced role, so we'll see how that one goes. The Giants announced their head coach GM duo are returning, as did the Colts and Dolphins. How does Chris Ballard keep getting away with this?
Yeah, he's such a mixed bag because I feel like he's drafted some good talent, but like at the same time, like this year was such a mess that it's really hard to justify him being there. Yeah.
Then Rodney McLeod retired after 13 years with the Rams, Eagles, Colts, and Browns. So good career there for him. Hope he does some cool things in his post NFL career.
Absolutely.
And then lastly for the news, the NFL has moved the Rams-Vikings wildcard game to State Farm Stadium in Arizona due to the wildfires in Los Angeles. There's already been a couple NBA and NHL games postponed as well. It's a mess down there. It's really heartbreaking to see all the different pictures and videos that have come out. And I hope everybody that's lost everything or lost family can recover and grieve and heal, because that shit is awful to look at.
Yeah. We've had to postpone this, or not postpone, but pause this podcast tonight already talking about that, because I'm planning on going down to the Anaheim area this weekend, and that might still be in the air, so be interesting. So my thoughts, prayers go out to everybody affected by that. Absolutely.
And on a related note, the Chargers ownership announced they would be donating $200,000 to the Red Cross, the LAFD Foundation, and Team Rubicon. So good gesture there for Dean Spanos.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we get to move on to all the different people that have been requested for interviews, because there's a lot of them.
Yeah. I do like how over half of these just say Jets.
Yeah, the Jets have a CVS receipt just for themselves.
Yeah.
So, OC for the Cardinals, Drew Petzing, has been interviewed by the Bears. Todd Monken, the OC for the Ravens, for the Bears, Jags, and Raiders. Mike Kafka, Northwestern legend, has been interviewed by the Bears and Saints. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, obviously the big names that will be coming out of the Lions. Ben Johnson, the Bears, Jags, Patriots, and Raiders. Aaron Glenn, the Bears, Jaguars, and Jets, and he declines the Patriots' request to interview with them. Sure.
Oh, no.
Mike Vrabel has been interviewed by the Bears, Jets, Jaguars, and Patriots. I think you can guess which one of those he's probably going to go to.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll is interviewing with the Bears and Raiders.
I think Pete Carroll would be a great fit in Chicago, honestly.
I was just about to say.
Yep.
Joe Brady from the Bills. He's been interviewed by the Bears, Jags, and Saints. Matt Campbell, the head coach from Iowa State, has been interviewed by the Bears. Of course, Iowa State coming off their best season ever, so makes sense, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Liam Cohen for the Bucks has been interviewed by the Jags. Kellen Moore by the Jags and Saints. The Raiders defensive coordinator by the Jaguars for some reason.
They were okay they were pretty good on defense early in the year, and then Max Crosby went out and kind of just went back to being a normal team. They were really good last year, but yeah.
Robert Saleh has been interviewed by the Jaguars and Raiders for their head coaching jobs, and the 49ers also interviewed him for their open defensive coordinator job, which is ironic because he left his post as the 49ers DC to coach the Jets.
I could see him going to the 49ers this year to kind of like rehab, like not
Like,
rehab his
rebuild his-
image,
like
but
rebuild
kind
stock.
of rebuild his stock. And like when you look at the teams that have head coaching openings, like the Jags looked like a really good opportunity, but now that Trent Baalke's still there, there's reports that not a lot of people want to go there. So do you? The Bears seems like an elusive job, but if they're not really interested, and honestly, nothing against Robert Saleh, but they don't need a defensive coach. That's been evidently clear. Maybe go back to the 49ers for a year. So
Yeah, I think the Raiders are going to have as hard of a time filling their post as the Jaguars, though, for being honest.
yeah,
That's not pretty. Brian Flores, of course, the DC for the Vikings with the Jags and Jets. The Jets are giving their interim coach, Jeff Ulbrich, an interview. I don't see any way that he stays there, though.
especially if
awful.
Rodgers is on his way out. Yeah.
Yeah. The Jets have also interviewed Vikings quarterbacks coach Josh McCown, who also played for the Jets in his football career. They've also interviewed both Chiefs coordinators Matt Nagy and Steve Spagnuolo, both of whom were very bad as head coaches.
Yeah.
So I don't
Spags
think
was
either
very
of those.
bad.
Yeah. If the only thing worse than the late 2000s Lions might have been the late 2000s Rams,
Yeah.
or other way around, but still. And
the 07, 08, 09 Rams are the only team in NFL history to go 3-13, 2-12, and then 1-15 in consecutive years.
yeah, just dog shit.
Yep.
Arthur Smith, Falcons legend, has been interviewed by the Bears and Jets. I don't think that would work well either.
No.
Texans OC Bobby Slowick, who is a much more prominent candidate after last year, so far has only been interviewed by the Jets, but that could change. Brian Greasy, the Niners quarterbacks coach, by the Jets, and Vance Joseph, the Broncos DC, also by the Jets. Darren Rizzi, he's going to try to rizz him up with the Saints, and the Jets also want to talk to him, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
The Patriots interviewed Byron Leftwich and also Pep Hamilton, which I hate to just put it out like this, but this seems like a very obvious, well, we have to because of the Rooney Rule interviews.
That was, I know a lot of people gave the Patriots shit for that last year because they hired Gerard Mayo from within the building. They didn't have to interview anybody.
Yeah.
And then, Robert Kraft being like, oh, he's our first black head coach and we don't see color. And then Gerard Mayo is like, well, I do. So
yeah, that was weird.
Bad vibes from literally day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that it's probably going to be Mike Vrabel, but I mean, I guess if you have to do your due diligence, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
David Shaw, who is a senior personnel executive for the Broncos, also used to coach at Stanford. He'll talk to the Saints. Anthony Weaver, the DC for the Dolphins with the Bears and Saints. I don't know why you'd want to interview anybody from the Dolphins defense. They gave up 30 points to the Titans. I think that's all you need to say about that.
They just gave up 30 to the Jets?
Yeah. Cliff Kingsbury's been interviewed by the Bears and Saints. And then the Niners have interviewed Lions defensive backs coach Deshae Townsend for their DC job. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of moving parts this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, we also already talked about both What the Football moments. And we kind of also already touched on our regular season predictions that aged like shit.
Yeah.
Specifically my Titans pick.
Well, I'm very happy still that my Jets pick about them missing the playoffs came true with 6 weeks left in the regular season. I'm going to flex that for years. I don't even care.
I'll have to go back to our preseason one because I know I said the Jags were going to rebound and win the South, and that went horribly. I said the Titans were going to be better than people expect, and they were worse than we were expecting.
Well, if people expected them to go 2-15, you'd still be right.
That is true. Yeah. I was kind of right about the Cardinals. I will say also a lot of people were down on the Bills, and I was like, I'm not counting them out yet. Just wait. And they were pretty goddamn good this year.
I remember saying that the Seahawks are going to be in contention for the number 1 pick, and then they went 10-7. But I also said that if anybody was going to, it would be the Giants, and they were close.
Yeah. I feel like I also predicted the 49ers missing the playoffs, but I'll have to go back and look at that again.
That Panthers Saints one though is fucking ridiculous.
Getting that one under the fucking buzzer.
Just
Yeah.
oh man, by the skin of my I should have bet on that.
Yeah.
And then on this
gosh.
day in football history, in 1962, the NFL passed a rule preventing defenders from grabbing face masks, and yet all these years later, we still get about 5 face mask penalties a game.
Stop doing it.
And on this day in 2000, a quarter century ago now, the Dolphins defeated the Seahawks in the wild card round. Yes, the Dolphins defeated the Seahawks for Dan Marino's last win in the NFL.
And surely
do
nothing
not
bad.
ask about what happened the week
Yeah.
after.
Nothing bad happened next week.
No, not at all.
I believe that was the last game or last NFL game ever played in the Kingdom, if I recall correctly.
That would
I'll
make
have to look into
sense.
it.
I think
Because
that was
I know,
Jimmy Johnson's last game in the NFL too.
I believe, yeah, you would be correct. Yeah. Yeah, because I was gonna say because they played at the University of Washington Stadium for I think 2001 or 2000 and 2001 while they were building their new stadium. Yeah. I guess we'll just get right into pick they thems because we don't have a lot of them to pick this week, but we have some
Thank
very
God.
important ones. And we'll start with once again the Houston Texans in their natural environment, which is the Saturday morning playoff game in Houston. For listeners of the or longtime listeners of the old Around the NFL podcast, it's west of us. Chargers at Texans.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers here. They're riding a hot hand, and the Texans have been wildly inconsistent and are still down a lot of their key offensive weapons. So I'm going to go with LA here.
I will also be taking the Chargers, and Steven took them as well. It's Chargers across the board. Speaking of which, I forgot to ask him if he has a lock.
Oh, we're locking for the playoffs? Oh, boy.
Yeah, we usually do that, so.
Yep, we're going to lock the Super Bowl.
Hell yeah. We've got a spicy pick for the next one. Steelers-Ravens Saturday night. Steven picking the Ravens. You can probably piece together why he's not doing the show this week.
Yeah, I'm going to be locking the Ravens here. The Steelers are on a 4-game losing streak, and they can't get anything going on offense. They got blown out by the Ravens when they played in Baltimore a couple weeks ago. I don't see this one going well.
Yeah, it probably gonna
Momentum
be
is
ugly.
not on their side.
Because it's the playoffs too, I'll let you guys double up in case Steven also picks the Ravens. I will also take the Ravens though. And then we kick off Sunday with Broncos at Bills. Also feels like kind of a slight. All 3 AFC playoff games happen before the 3 NFC ones happen. I'm going to take the Bills. I know the Broncos are riding some momentum, but I think Buffalo's going to take care of the business.
I'm going to agree with you, but I think this game is going to be a one-score game.
Yeah, I can see it being
by
close.
3 or 7 or something else, I think this is a one-score win for the Bills.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Von Miller revenge game too, by the way.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Then we actually there was a stat I saw earlier. It was like Sean Payton is like 30-12 against bald head coaches over the last few years. I was like, oh, watching out for that one.
Yeah, 13 after this one.
Packers at Eagles for the Sunday mid slot.
Well, Jalen Hurts is banged up and Jordan Love is banged up. This one could be kind of ugly.
Yeah.
The Eagles are a better all-around team, though, and the Packers have injuries in other places as well. So I'm taking Philly.
Steven also took the Eagles. I don't want to pick in unison for 4 straight games, but I'm kind of feeling the same thing.
I think these are all relatively easy, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that matters is if Jalen Hurts plays, which, like you mentioned, he's still in the concussion protocol.
I think he practiced today, but I don't know if he was a limited or full participant or not.
I'm going to go with... I'll go with the Eagles as well, yeah.
I just think with Watson being out and Jair Alexander being out, and they're down a starting lineman as well, I think the Packers are going to be too banged up to keep it a game.
Yeah. Then we get Sunday night's game, bound to be extremely stupid and extremely entertaining. Commanders at Buccaneers.
Our team wins the rematch on the road.
Oh my gosh. Steven took the Commanders as well. Unfortunately, I can't take our team as well. I got to roll with my boy Baker. I'm picking the Bucks at home. You know what? Fuck it. I'm locking the Bucks. Let's go.
That's bold.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think of all the games, this is the least lockable one. Maybe except for the next one.
Yeah, that is true. I'm also locking it, anticipating that Steven's gonna lock the Bills. So, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna change my lock to the Chargers. That's a really dumb idea, but I'm doing it.
Locking the Chargers, that feels illegal.
I could feel my body like rejecting that as I was trying to say it, but I pushed through.
Chargers transplant.
And then finally, Monday night. Don't know why this is a playoff game still. Get rid of the Monday night playoff game, please. Vikings at Rams.
In Arizona.
Yeah. The Cardinals host the Vikings and the Rams simultaneously.
I am bummed about this because the Rams have now lost their home field advantage through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
But even with that, the last time that they played on a stage this big after an event like this was when they beat the Chiefs in the Coliseum in 2018. And I think when the Rams, even though they're in Arizona, when the Rams step on the field, they're going to be playing basically for the entire city of Los Angeles in this game. And even though the Vikings have had a better year, the Rams beat them the first time around, and I think they're going to ride this, and they're going to beat them again on Monday night.
I'm gonna... Let's see. Steven took the Rams as well. I'm gonna bank on the Sam Darnold bounce back game. I'm gonna take the Vikings.
Again, a really tough one because the Vikings, I think, have been a better team, but like obviously with the head-to-head and with the emotions that are going to be around this game, I think the Rams are in a better spot for this game.
Yeah.
And also the Vikings just had a really demoralizing loss to end the regular season too, and I think that could hang over their heads a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and those pick they thems. I'm already thinking about changing my lock again. I'm not feeling good with the Chargers one. Give me the Bucks again. Fuck it. I'm not locking the Chargers. I know better than that. I'll pick with my heart.
And how do we all finish in the regular season for picks?
Oh, good question. At the end of the regular season, I ended up with a 191 and 99 record. I did not hit 100 losses. That's a winning percentage of 659. I went 14-4 in locks. I ended my fucking, I think it was a 13-week lock streak by locking the Bills this week. I'm so fucking mad.
Why? Didn't I try to caution you against doing that?
I think you did. I'm so fucking mad.
Known.
I started out 1-3 on locks and then got 13 in a row, and then the Patriots fucked me. I'm so pissed.
Well, they fucked themselves too, if it makes you feel better.
Oh my god. But yeah, you've placed second at 182, 108, and 0. There's no ties, so you had a 13-5 lock record, and Steven
I'm mad we had no ties this year.
Yeah.
Not even
we
one.
We picked so many. And then Steven went 175 and 115. He was 14-4 in his locks as well. Honestly, probably our best season in pick'ems that we've ever done.
Yeah, we were all 60 games over 500 or more.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yes. So that's pretty cool. As it turns out, we're kind of good at this stuff. Also, there's some bonus stats in here, which is so the alphabetical record. So picking teams that. So basically, if between two teams, if you pick the one that comes before the other one alphabetically, we were 143 and 129. So
I was 15-2 picking Commanders games. Oh my god!
Also, just picking the team with the better record, 171 and 101. So we're pretty good at that. It's also funny to look at how we picked certain teams. So for example, Dewey, you never picked against the Patriots until I believe the final week. No, you picked them every single time.
Yep.
You only picked the Jets once. I picked the Giants once. I never picked the Browns, and I only picked against the Bills once all year.
I only picked the Raiders and Panthers twice too, and I think I got the Panthers wrong both times. And the Browns twice.
Wait, let's see. What was your record on the Panthers? You were 0-2 picking the Panthers. Yeah.
I think I picked them week 1, and I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. And then I did it again, and they got it wrong again.
It's also fun to look at. So each of our most picked teams, Steven picked the Steelers 17 times. You picked the Patriots. I picked the Bills 17 times. You only picked
never
the Jets.
picked against the Bills?
I don't think I did.
Wow.
No, I picked against them once, and I think it was the Lions. So it is factoring in the playoffs, so that does help. I
was about to say, why are some of these 18 and not 17? And I just,
Yeah,
oops.
and locks also count into those too. Steven's least picked the Cowboys only twice. Mine, the Browns, 3 years in a row, haven't picked them. And you picked the Jets once. And then all of our most locked teams are the Bills.
What a weird year.
Steven was 13-4 picking the Lions. That was his best team. His worst was the Chargers at 5-12. I was really good at predicting the Saints. I went 15-2. I'm willing to bet my 2 Saints losses were the first 2 weeks. I'm going to check this real quick. Hang on.
Probably, yeah.
No, I picked them week 1, and I picked against them week 2. So, yeah, that's dumb.
So, besides me going 4-13 for the Patriots, the only other team I was under 500 and picking was the Texans of all teams.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone else I was 9-8 or better.
Yeah, I stunk at picking the Steelers this year, 7-10. So, yeah, and that was the regular season for Oofsides.
Look at that.
What a year. Of course, there's still going to be there's more Oofsides on the way, obviously. You can find that here and on whatever platform you're choosing to listen to it on. Yeah, we'll be back here next week to talk about the Yoffs. Hopefully it's cool and fun. Any closing thoughts?
Hey, for anyone that's watching, the next couple episodes are going to be considerably shorter too.
Yeah, there you go, Joe. You
A third of the amount of games to go over.
Exactly. And on that note, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Football.